All right, so welcome again, and let's just quickly review what we will do today, and then I'll let everyone ask questions. So you should all have access to this mural, which is pristine. No one has filled it out yet. Let me know if you don't have access. You can interrupt me, but I think everyone should. And you also have this issue that you're assigned to. And today we're going through this synchronous session. So what we're going to do is look primarily at this top part, that is the steps brainstorm, and looking at the different stages that we have here. At the top, we have the phases before, during, and after, and then we have stages below it, and then we have the steps. And today, what we're all going to do is brainstorm, initially in silence, solution agnostic steps of what the user is trying to accomplish, and try to fit them in these stages. And you can think of the stages here, define, locate, prepare, and they have a description underneath, like a checklist, right? So it's just a reminder of, okay, when this persona is going through this job, at this stage of confirming, is there anything that they usually need to do? What is what are the steps here? And maybe they need to do something, maybe they don't. We don't have to fill all of these stickies, but it's just a checklist, a reminder to reflect on them. In terms of what I mean by solution agnostic, I give you an example here in the map, which has these stickies here next to each title. So for example, this one says, determine what songs to listen in the moment, right? So if we were looking at a job or a problem to solve that is around listening to music, this could be one of the steps. And it's solution agnostic. It could be any solution to listening to music. But then in the actions, we have, for example, view, explore, tab, right? That is very specific. That's a action, a very specific step of something that the user is doing. And it can be inside of the product, or it can be outside of it, right? It can be other touch points, other tools, talking to someone, whatever it is. But this comes later. It was just to give an example of the difference between a step and an action. Today, we're going to look at this. And I don't know if you had time to look at it, but we're focusing today on only one persona and a job to be done for that persona. So the persona is Sasha, our software developer. And they spend the majority of their time focused on completing planned development tasks, with roughly 30 to 40% of time taken by meetings, planning for the next sprint, and fixing bugs or customer requests as they arise. They work off of Jira tickets and have a regular stand-up with my team. Interesting that they mentioned working off Jira tickets. And the job to be done is quite broad. So the situation, when product improvements are identified, I want to propose changes that address them. That is the job. And the outcome is so that I can help build a better product, right? And in the first session that I did 2 days ago, it wasn't clear what was the end, right? So when did we get to this stage of concluding, ending the job? For Sasha, is it just proposing the changes, or shepherding those changes that they have proposed until they are merged, right? And I think I'll let you also tell me what you think, but I believe that we should look at everything that they do from the moment that they, from the moment that the product improvements are identified, because that's a situation, until the proposed changes that Sasha proposes are integrated into the product, because it's also part of helping to build a better product, to shepherd those changes and make sure that those proposed changes are up to standards, are flawless, et cetera, et cetera. And I'll pause there. Any questions, thoughts, or comments about this so far? All right, I'll take that as a no. Okay, so the first activity, as I said, we're going to do that in silence, is to fill out as much as we can of these stickies here. If they run out, I don't think they will, but if they run out, you can select one of them and copy paste or press Command D, and it will duplicate a sticky right next to it. And if possible, try to write using this structure. So verb, object, and optional contextual clarifier. In this example, we see that the verb is determine, the object is what songs to listen, and then the optional contextual clarifier is to listen in the moment. Yeah, sorry. So try to write it that way and try to be as succinct as possible, but it's okay if you write it in a different way. We will look into that separately. And the interesting part is that we're going to do this initially by not seeing what others are writing. So Mural has this private mode that I will activate. And during the 10 minutes that we will all try to fill out as much as we can of these stages and steps, we won't see each other's stickies. And when I end that private mode, you will be able to see what your colleagues have contributed. Any questions?
So if two people are editing the same sticky, it handles that? I'm more like going to be amazed if that's a real thing, that it can do that.
So
very impressed.
It doesn't let you write on someone else's sticky, and it tells you which stickies have content and that someone else has written on. So don't worry about overwriting someone else's content. But yeah, so focus on quantity, not quality. So try to write as much as you can, even if it's, not very reasonable. It doesn't matter. Write everything, and it just has to be based on your assumptions, what you think, hypothesis. It doesn't have to be validated or right, or it doesn't have to be something that you have witnessed for sure. So yeah, let's get this started. Have fun. Just contribute as much as possible. Again, it doesn't have to be right. And the part about getting this right is my job. It's not your job. Your job right now is just to output things like a survey, right? Like if you're filling out something to get your opinion. Okay, so I'll activate private mode and I'll start the timer for 10 minutes with the airplane sound. So let's do this. Good luck. If you have any questions about what could happen at a certain stage or moment, or if something is valid, you can ask them. This is looking good. Keep it up. Just create, create, create. Don't worry about the quality. Okay, we're halfway through, 4 minutes and something left. I see a lot of activity. This is looking good. Some people have already gone all the way down to conclude and after. Yeah, take your time, go back and forth. There's still 4 minutes left. So one thing that I forgot to mention is that you can treat or think of the execute, monitor, and modify stages as a loop, more or less. So, you know, the Sasha is performing the job in the execute stage, but then they monitor and they evaluate the success, like if what they're doing was or is correct, and then they modify, they iterate based on the feedback that they've gotten from evaluating that, or from other people, or from the other tools, if that makes sense. Okay, 2 minutes left. Okay, 1 minute left. Okay, time's up, but I'll give you just a few extra seconds to stop writing what you're writing. I'll end private mode. Let's see how that looks. There you go. Wow, good job. Good job, Evan. That's. I mean, there are a lot of empty stickies, but don't worry about those. I created those, just that it was easy for everyone to just add things. But there are a lot of steps here, and it's what is amazing here is that the steps are solution agnostic. Things that the user is trying to accomplish is not necessarily the detailed actions of click button, open drop down, write this, write that. So this is really good. So what I'm going to do is just give everyone 5 minutes now to review all of the stickies that you see here, because you were not seeing your colleagues' stickies. I'll give 5 minutes for everyone to just take a quick look at everything, see if your colleagues' stickies inspire you somehow to write other things that you remember. So 5 minutes. I hope that's enough. And now the timer will have a cuckoo sound. Let's see. Okay. Has everyone reviewed the stickies, or do you still need a bit more time? Matt is good, Mike as well. Eric and okay, great. So I'll stop the timer. That was enough then. Good. I hope it was good to see your colleagues' stickers and what they wrote. So right now, and don't worry, so far I've been the only one talking. It's been quite of a silent activity, but that's okay. You've contributed a lot. And right now we're going to have another silent step. But after that, we will open the discussion and it will be more a free form about what we have here. Okay. So right now, let me share my screen. What we're all going to do collaboratively is, now that we're seeing all of the stickies and all of these different ideas, is to cluster them. So look for patterns and similar steps that could be duplicated or that are very tightly related and could be consolidated somehow. And so we can do this all together. I will help as well. And you can just drag some of the stickies to this blank area below and start grouping them as you see fit, and just, place them together close to one another. Try to pick areas or stickies that your colleagues are not picking as well. So, go left, go right. And by the end of 5 minutes, we should all have the stickies organized. Any questions? All right, let's do this then. I'll start the timer. 5 minutes, and now with a cello sound. Let's go.
Should we stay within the buckets, meaning if there are similar ones that are across different stages?
Good question, Mike. No, you don't need to stay within those lanes. You can, drag them left, right, because that's completely right. Some people might have written something very similar in a stage next to it. And it doesn't, at the end of the day, to be honest, doesn't really matter if it's the correct stage. It just matters that there's some kind of, order to it, left to right, in terms of timing. But yeah, you can drag it back and forth, and we will organize it later.
Sounds good.
It's looking good. We still have a few stickies that haven't been clustered. We still have a minute and a half left, but I can extend it a bit more if we need. Cello. I don't know if you heard that. Cool. Is everything clustered? I see one there in prepare who wants to take that. Collaborate with UX to design the feature. That's something that probably happens before Sasha comes in, because the product improvements have been already identified. So usually it comes before, but they can be involved, of course. All right. Now let's. If we still have time, we will also try to have everyone suggest titles for the clusters. But for now, what I would like to do is to quickly go through each one of them more or less and open up the discussion for us to chat about them and see what we agree, what we don't agree on, and what we thought was interesting, or even things that maybe feel a little bit like outside of this, or that, is it Sasha who's responsible for this step, or is it someone else? So let's first look here at the before column. And we have read existing backlog, gain access to the work backlog. I think that makes sense. And then we have the scheduling part, which is interesting, and the priority of the task. And then at the same time, we have identify an area for improvement, which could be Sasha's responsibility or not to identify that. What does everyone think about this part?
I think it looks pretty good. I think that the balance between the Sasha persona being given tasks and or identifying tasks on her own to complete is reflected there.
Mm-hmm. That's interesting. That's an interesting take. All right.
For me, it's kind of hard to know, like, are we only thinking about things that Sasha is doing, or because that's from the point of identifying a problem to concluding, Sasha's not the only one involved. So I was just kind of, as I was going through this, I was trying to find that balance of like what's Sasha's responsibility and what's, if we don't include any of Sasha or anything that's not Sasha's, I think there's a lot of things in here that we probably could take out, but they're still important to this whole process. So
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I think we should write things and then have these steps from Sasha's perspective. So if it's something that she is waiting on, and for example, I'm waiting for reviewers' feedback, right? That's a step in itself, right? I could be doing other things, but for this particular improvement, there's a step where I'm waiting, or there's a step where I'm engaging with them, or there's a step where I'm waiting for my PM to prioritize this, right? Or my engineering manager, or waiting for the maintainer to merge it, or even waiting for user feedback, whatever it is. So there's also those waiting phases and steps, and collaborative steps where I'm working with someone else. Okay, so then in the define stage, determine objective and plan approach to complete job, we have create a proposal for the work, which I think it's like a plan how we were going to approach it. This is understanding and clarifying to make sure we understand the requirements and what we're going to do. Yeah, interestingly, we have the technical spike to uncover implementation details. I would think that this might be separate from discussing the problem. What do you all think? I can't tell if that's agreement or disagreement.
I moved it there, and I don't remember where I had put it before. It was sort of like sometimes we do, and I was thinking through this, like sometimes in order to concretely define a problem, you have to spend time like doing engineering to like know what the actual problem is. And so I sort of put it there. It could go probably in a variety of places, but that was sort of my thought. Sometimes like, yeah, I don't know. If we're going to say we're going to create a proposal, like you sort of, sometimes you need that spike to like create those proposals.
Right. I think, so I would say that, this one clarifies scope of problem or understand problem to be solved. These are probably too broad, right? Because there are many things that you can do to understand it. There are many things you can do to clarify it. But then you have 2 specific or 3 specific things to discuss the problem with your team, which is similar to collaborating. And another thing you can do is separately, you can work on a spike, right? And all of these 3 things are actually could be considered sub-steps of these 2, which are, the outcome. So yeah, I mean, you don't have to worry about that. I can organize this later, but it's I think it's interesting for us to think about all of the things that one can do for a specific outcome. So yeah, let's leave it here for now. I don't know if anyone else wants to comment on this one. Okay, let's move forward. Okay, this one has a lot of, it seems like, consensus around reviewing things that might affect the problem and the solution. Okay, confirm the feature does not already exist. This is a funny one. It's important. It's important depending on how your organization works to confirm that you're not doing duplicate work. Okay. Anyone wants to share some thoughts about this part here, or are we all good with what's here? It can also be just questions if you don't understand what someone else wrote. Okay. Yeah, then we have this one. I think it's kind of similar. Interestingly, here in the prepare when you're creating the right setup. We have, create epics and breaking down the work, which you could say could come before this part, but again, it doesn't, it's not really that important if it comes right before or after. We can work through that later. Setting up development environment, cloning the project and making sure you have the latest version, creating a branch. This one is very interesting, understanding the organizational branch strategy. Yeah, who wrote this? I think I can see who wrote this. And I'm just curious. Yeah, Mike, I think you added this one, or?
Yeah, so, just thinking about from the source code perspective, right? That's branching is a tough thing. Sasha's a newer developer. Like, how do I go about making this change? Should I do it off of a feature branch, or branch off a branch off a branch? Could be a barrier to entry to getting started on this kind of thing. So knowing where to make the change basically is the thought there.
Do you think this is something that will happen every time Sasha needs to propose some changes, or is it something that comes before, when she's just getting acquainted with the project itself or how the organization works?
I think it can be both, depending on what triggered this change to be, right? Why is this change being proposed? It could be, hotfix, right? Has to go in a certain world where feature stuff kind of operates over there. So I think it is very much dependent on what triggered the change that's being introduced.
Right. So I'm going to suggest the following. So I think, just broad understanding of the strategy. I think it's probably something that comes before, but maybe when you're preparing, you just want to, confirm that you're following the organizational brand strategy, right? So maybe you understand that first, but then when you're about to start your work, you just want to make sure, hey, is it still the right thing that I'm doing? Am I branching this off in the right place? What do you think, Mike?
Yeah, I agree. I think I had it in a step before. I just saw create branch and I feel like that grouped well with it, right? When you create the branch, you got to understand where to branch from. So.
Yeah. Now, let me see here. Okay, so we know in the confirm stage, have assign task to engineer, signal ownership, connect with signal parts, validate the expected outcome, ensure scope is defined. So, okay, execute. We have write code to address a problem, which is, make changes. Documentation, very important. Test changes, create test changes, build the application, ensure security through widgets. I don't know if I get this one.
Yeah, it's not a great one. I was thinking through sort of like all of the things that you would have tested either locally or via feedback potentially, right? Like you would have feedback on the development process, and you could lump that in with like the test above it or the code quality one next to it. Like it sort of all was, my thought was in the feedback, like machine-based feedback, not in people-based feedback.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, so in a way, it's similar to this one, right? Test code with CI. Yeah, I think.
Yeah, I mean, CI is probably also loaded because it's probably not that you're running CI locally. You're probably running RSpec locally, which is a variation of some of the CI jobs. And you're probably getting code quality feedback, but it's not necessarily like the same as CI feedback in some way, shape, or form.
Okay, cool, got it. Okay, let's quickly see here. Monitor should be fairly simple, monitor, analyze the performance of the code, check that changes were deployed, which can also be the case. This one might actually come after, right? When you're concluding or wrapping up, or even after everything is done, just to make sure that it was deployed. Because in a way, the Sasha's proposal was accepted, right? So I don't know who wrote this or who moved it here. Do you agree, mover?
I don't remember if that's what, in these few stages, I got a little confused because there is a couple different verification paths or monitor paths. There's one of like, I need to monitor the MR or the change itself and monitor for feedback and make changes until I get this change actually deployed. And then there's also the phase of, I need to monitor it after it's been deployed and make sure things are working. And those kind of got conflated together for me somehow.
Yeah, no, that's okay. That's okay. And it's completely normal. And again, these are, like a template, like a checklist of things that we should look out for to make sure that we don't miss anything. It's not something that we have to follow religiously.
Same thing with like modify and conclude as well. Like conclude, it could just be, I concluded the merge request process and, submitted the change. Or it could be, I'm done with this altogether and I'm closing the issue and moving on with my life.
Yeah. I think everything else here is quite quite straightforward, collaborating with reviewers and responding to their feedback, responding to failing tests. And I mean, this will likely include any kind of test failure related to code quality, security, and so on. So all checks basically that we have today in the merge request. Propose a change to the production database under concludes, verified changes are expected to be merged. Yeah, I wonder if these two should be separate. I'm not entirely certain of the intent of each one of them.
I think the vague intent I wrote with the proposed change was like, that's the final, it's the final code that's meant to hit production, right? The MR or whatever. So it's probably different from the intent of the other one, but I don't know if that's in the right place either.
So this is when the changes that I'm proposing will affect, for example, the structure of the database, or in this case, it's the code base. Oh, okay, sorry, I was misreading it. So it's the code base. Okay, yeah, I think, as a whole, like this captures everything that, or the whole job basically. And that the outcome is to help build a better product, and to do that, you propose a change to the production code base. So I would think that this is separate from verifying that the changes work as expected. And then finally, in the after, we have create follow-up issues to address new items and create release posts. I wonder who wrote this.
I just threw that one in there because I forgot about it.
Well, this is
excited if Sasha is going to start doing their own release post items. I welcome this new change to our workflow.
All right.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and the interesting part is that a lot of things that we think could fit as part of this job can actually be related jobs, and those come especially in the before and after. That maybe after Sasha concludes this job, another job starts, right? Or before it, you have other jobs that only happen once, like understanding the code base or getting familiar or getting access to it. All right, so we have these dependencies. All right, so any other thoughts or comments or questions about what we just did today? All right, that's great. No questions. Okay, so next steps for this, we can celebrate, of course, and the next steps are what I will. Thank you, Kai. What everyone, what I would like for everyone to do is to. There's a link here in your groups issue with a link to the Epic thread where I would like for you to share your thoughts and learnings from this activity, what you thought was interesting or not, what went well, what didn't go so well. There are some inspirational questions there in the Epic thread, but I will ping you there in any case. And after this, we will have time for async individual work. So I'm proposing between these dates, so tomorrow until the 15th, and I suggest, setting aside 2 hours of focus time to fill out the rest of this map here, right? So what I will do before is revise all of the stickies that you have here, consolidate them, and copy them to this area of the steps, where it will be, more or less the final steps, so to speak. And those will serve as guidelines for you to fill out the actions here, which is, just the detailed actions of what they're actually doing in the tools and so on, what they're feeling, positive and negative thoughts and feelings, pain points and opportunities. And again, this is all based on your assumptions. It doesn't have to be right or validated. And for the actions specifically, I recommend that for the actions and everything really, but mostly for the actions, I recommend that you actually try to rehearse this flow and go through this journey yourself using whatever tools Sasha would use. And I mean, we assume mostly GitLab, but also other tools, and go through that flow yourself and try to, place yourself in Sasha's shoes. And yeah, it's all written here as well. If you want instructions, focus on quantity, not quality. And I will remind you about the next steps, but this will be the next activity that it will last between tomorrow and the 15th, because on the 16th, we have another sync session to wrap all of this up. Questions, comments? It's very straightforward. Wow. Okay, you're gonna blow it out of the park. I hope. Cool. Yeah. But in any case, if you have questions, and I'm sure you will have questions, let me know. Ping me in the Epic or the issue. Yeah. And to finalize this, and Kai, you're already familiar with it. What I'd like everyone to do is to open the chat window in Zoom and share how you're feeling right now with your emoji picker in the chat window. Just pick an emoji that represents how you're feeling right now, your mood, to make sure that we're all hopefully feeling like our best. In your case, to tackle the rest of the day, for me to sign off for today. All right. Okay, cool. Mostly positive. Matt is thinking, which is also a positive thing. It's also good to reflect and be in that mood. I hope that continues to this mood continues to the next activity where you will work async. I hope you had a good time today. It was fun to do this kind of activity and not just be commenting on GitLab and in Slack. Yeah, and I hope to see you next time.
Thanks, Pedro. And thanks for facilitating.
Yep. Yeah, thanks, Pedro.
Cool. Thank you, everyone. Have a great rest of your week. Bye-bye.